and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nagasa from Sanyii Academy. Today, I am going to deliver a lecture on global trends, lessons which is nature and evolution of international relations. Last time, we have seen about understanding international relation, the subject matter of international relation, and how it helps individuals, scholars, and practitioners to grasp the reality of the world beyond the media coverage, television broadcasts, and daily consumption of information. As usual, I would like to inform you to subscribe, like, share, comment on this video, and be family to Sanyii Academy. I just jump to the detail of the session. I invite you to attentively follow my lecture. Today, we are going to see about nature and evolution of international relations. Last time we have seen what international relation is and how it plays a significant role in the advancement of international politics and how the global political system is gradually developing and including other actors besides states. So today we are going to look at the historical evolution of international relation, the modern international system, as well as international politics itself is Eurocentric. So in medieval Europe, there was a complicated pattern of overlapping jurisdictions and loyalties following the rise of sovereign states. Sovereign states were emerged in the medieval period. Up until the 1648, there was a universal as well as local nature of politics as a result of overlapping of jurisdictions and loyalties among the states. During that time, life was local, and most political power was confined to local because chiefs, landlords, clergies, and political entities, the lowest structure of political entities, were playing their role in the political formation. There was enormous diversity of political entities like feudal lords who ruled their respective states, their respective territories. Cities were also made up of independent merchants who governed them because during the time the criteria for administration or rulership was having resources, having wealth. Cities were made up of independent merchants who have the power to control the entire city. States were also ruled by clerics and smaller political entities, principalities and duchies, who had significant amount of control over the political status of the time. At the time, we see two major and greater institutions having control of the entire Europe, even the entire world, we can say at this point. There were two institutions having control over the continent as a whole, the Holy Roman Catholic Church and Holy Roman Empire. These two institutions were considered as a universal institution dealing with the entire human issues. So, in detail, we are going to look how these two main institutions played their significant role. The church, the Roman Catholic Church, was spiritual authority which is centered at Rome and controlling every spiritual aspect of the entire nation all over the world. Dictations, guidelines, and administrative ways of arranging politics as well as churches come from this Roman Catholic Church. The influence of church spread far and penetrated deeply into people's life. The people's life was basically influenced by the teaching, by the administration, or influence of Roman Catholic Church. The church occupied a crucial role in the cultural and intellectual life of the Middle Age. In the Middle Age, it was the church that played a crucial role in the cultural and intellectual life of individuals or people. It was the church that controlled the cultural base of the people of the Middle Age. It was the church that provided knowledge, teachings in institutions. Academic institutions were established by Roman Catholic Church. So students were influenced to learn curriculums developed by Roman Catholic Church on the basis of religion and culture according to which the Roman Catholic Church forces. The Holy Roman Empire was the political wing of the time. It is centralized and had a separate political unit. It was having influence in areas of politics and states structures. It also included parts of Italy, France, and today's Netherlands and Belgium. The influence of this Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Empire was not only confined to Rome, it expanded its authority to other areas like Netherlands, France, Italy, and Belgium. So, due to this Holy Roman Empire had its wings in different countries, had its subsidiary installations in different countries. There were local authorities subordinate to Holy Roman Empire to execute policies and administrative structures and administrative acts in different parts of the world. So the political system of medieval Europe was thus curious combination of the local and the universal. What does this mean? This means universally it was ruled and administered by the Roman Empire, and locally those chiefs, clergies, individuals, landlords who had power to rule local communities were making local political decisions. This had two natures. On one hand, the Roman Empire is a universal institution carrying out political activities at international level. On the other hand, local chiefs, clergies, feudal lords were carrying out politics at local level. The political situation of Europe during this time was having two characteristics. One, the universal characteristics, and the second, the local characteristics. Remember, I said the political life in the mid age was dominated by Roman Empire, and the second, the spiritual and cultural as well as intellectual aspect of humanity was controlled by Holy Roman Catholic Church. So this has created opposition. It established the feeling that states want to liberate themselves from the control and domination of these two institutions. From the 14th century onwards, the system was greatly challenged and new states emerged as a political entity. The power, the authority, and the policies of these two institutions, Roman Empire and Roman Catholic Church, was greatly challenged because the teaching of Roman Catholic Church as well as the dictation of Holy Roman Empire had a great impact on the life of peoples. So they started to find another way to overthrow the domination and control of these institutions. These states, the newly emerged states, opposing to the power of Holy Roman Catholic Church and the power of Holy Roman Empire, acted as an intermediate between the local and the universal. So they entered in the midst of this administration. They wanted to reconcile. They want to manage and stand between the local as well as universal level of political administration. This new state is opposed to popes and emperors on the universal level. They opposed that they should not dominate the politics and also influence decision making by themselves for their own good. And also at the local level, they started to mix the rulers on the local level. They started to reverse. They started to mix them. They started to make the structures and administrations as if it is possible for them to establish new region as a means to disallow the base of these universal institutions, Holy Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Empire. They were cutting the root of these two institutions. They were making the local politics at their best. They were making it for their own advantage. As a result, Holy Roman Catholic Church and Roman Empire lost control of local politics. Basically, local politics fall into the power and the grip of new states. It was the way, the strategy they used to overthrow the control and the power of Holy Roman Catholic Church and the Roman Empire. As a result, states became sovereign and self-governing. They started to have authority to decide on their matters and also govern their own people, as well as they started to oppose against external power interfering in their dominion. Some city-states, such as Florence, Venice, Ravenna, and Milan, eventually made themselves independent of the Roman Catholic Church and Roman Empire. In Germany, the Pope struggled with the emperor over who of the two should have the right to appoint bishops. So the claim started to arise in Germany. The Pope said, "It is my right to appoint bishops." And then the emperor objected. The emperor opposed that it should not be appointed by the Pope. So there was a political rivalry between the Pope and the emperor to decide on the politics of the nation. The kings of France, subsequently, and England began acting more independently by defying Pope's orders. They neglected, they refused to accept the Pope's directives. They refused to accept what Pope says. Policies and regulations coming from popes were neglected by kings of France and the United Kingdom. So they become independent of the Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church. Between the 1309 and 1377, even the French king had the power to force Pope to move to Avignon in the southern France, from the central France to the southern France. They were dislocating them. They were ordering popes to change their places. It was under their direction and guidance that the popes were locating themselves. Popes were no more having authority to decide about the politics of the nation. They were no more autonomous. Rather, kings were influencing them. In England, meanwhile, the king revoked the Pope's right to levy taxes on the people. Previously, it was the Pope which levy tax, which collect taxes from people. The power of collecting tax was revoked from the Pope by the king. This indicates the power of the Pope. The role of the Pope in the politics of the nation was coming to an end. As a result, both intellectual and religious movements were taking place in Europe. With the Reformation in the 16th century, The notion of a unified Europe broke down and the church began to split apart. The primary objective of the Roman Catholic Church and Roman Empire was to bring Europe under their control, to unify Europe as one country, to unify Europe as one country and create a mighty Europe. The Pope was doing the same, and the Emperor was also doing the same. The Roman Empire was also doing the same. But when this opposition emerged from new states needing independence and equality, then the notion of unified Europe broke down and the church started to split. The followers of Martin Luther and John Calvin, as you know, Martin Luther was the one who started protest against Roman Catholic Church, having the motto of justification by faith. So he opposed to the authority of Holy Roman Catholic Church and founded Protestant religion. And John Calvin was another person who split Catholicism into two, and he had his followers called Calvinists. The Martin Luther followers were Protestants. They started opposition against Roman Catholic Church and established their own denominations. These denominations refused to take orders from Roman Catholic Church. So they were not subordinate to the authority and direction given by the Roman Catholic Church. This indicated how far the influence and the role of Roman Catholic Church was breaking down, and their notion of bringing Europe under a unified religious and political map was not fulfilled. The new churches then aligned themselves with the new states. Kings used this opportunity, supporting reformation to advance their political objectives and also free themselves from Rome, Roman Empire. They aligned themselves. They wanted to free themselves from the orders of Roman Empire, and they came together. States organized along religious denominations. All over the northern Europe, Protestant churches became state-run, and church lands became property of the state. So states began to follow religion and use it as a means to attack the power of Roman Catholic Church and also to attack the power of Roman Empire. So finally, the land which was owned by Roman Empire and Roman Catholic Church was confiscated, taken by new states, and also they started to levy tax by themselves by revoking the power of levying, collecting taxes from the popes. In this way, kings rejected traditional claims of all local authorities. Clergymen, landlords, feudal lords claimed that they had power, they had right to administer their estates, their territories, but kings rejected their proposal. Kings rejected their claim. Because of this, landlords, feudal clergies, feudal lords, clergies, and principalities were resourceful and had their own estates and power. They opposed against the policies and establishment of governments, kings. So, as a result, wars broke out in Europe. As we say, new states arranged themselves on the line of Protestant and Catholicism, basically Calvinism and Protestantism, and they started to oppose to the power of Roman Catholic Church and the power of Roman Empire. And feudal lords, local authorities who were directed by Roman Catholic Church and Roman Empire started to claim that they have right to administer their states, their territory. They opposed to the king's rules and administrative staffs. They started to fight against these new states. Peasants, therefore, protested against taxes and burdens imposed by repeated wars. As I just said, there was war every place, in Europe because of the European order. State system is transforming itself from the old to new one. The new political order was coming, new administrative order was coming, and there was a conflict, there was a collision between the oldies and the new ones. As a result, conflict broke out, and the new ones, or newly independent states, started to impose taxes on these peasants, and it was huge in amount, and then it caused protest against their authority. There were massive peasant revolts in Germany, Sweden, Croatia, England, and Switzerland as a result of this increased tax system. To avoid this war and protests, for the 16th century onwards, states established the rudiments of an administrative system to control and also provide effective service to the people, and also raised armies to fight peasants and defend themselves against other states. So they started to restructure, they started to reform the administrative situation and structure in Europe under their territory. So they started to establish administrative system so as to provide and control the people, and also raise armies to defend themselves against foreign intervention, and also control peasants under their authority. The European state emerges in the midst of a struggle and strife. Europe, European state system emerged from struggle, from fight, wars. This indicates that everywhere you go in the world, there is no state that was peacefully established. States came out of wars. States emerged out of conflict. States emerged out of fight, bloody wars, civil wars. The war was the most bloodiest and most protracted military confrontation for 30 years. Starting from 1618 to 1648, there was a war in the entire Europe. As a result of the war, many destructions happened. Civilians were killed. There was no peace. There was no stability in the entire Europe. As a result of the war, the population of Germany was reduced by a salt even. Resources were destroyed, looted, and militaries were doing harsh measures, taking harsh measures against their enemies and the civilians. And also many of the people died of battlefield and also plagues came. And majority of people died as a result of plague, as a result of war. So this was the consequence of this bloody war that lasted for 30 years. The 30 Years' War is often called religious war because it was a conflict between Catholic states and the Protestant states. Catholic state sided on one side and Protestant state had another side. So this had intensified consequences. This had very huge consequences, both in terms of human as well as material destructions. To the end of the war, or to end the war, European states came together at the Westphalia and then signed the Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. The primary purpose of this Westphalia Treaty was to end the 30-Year War because Europe was not stable, material and human destructions happened, and the entire system of politics was distorted. There was no peace. There was no development. There was no progress. So the whole system, the whole people of Europe became enemy of each other. In order to end this, they came together and signed the Treaty of Westphalia. This treaty symbolized the new way of organizing international politics because at this point, at this Westphalia Treaty, nation state was born. States were recognized. They were given recognition They said we have to stop and we have to recognize the birth of modern state. From this point, national politics was the matter of relations between state, not the political units. So it was seen as the relationship between states. So they had to avoid religious inputs, guidelines, and directives important. So state had to establish this relationship. In this case, they can help themselves achieve the political objectives. At this treaty, the sovereign equality of state was recognized. Despite their size, despite their population number, the sovereign equality of the state was recognized. That means the state was equal no matter what size and what number of people it contains. That means the exclusive right to rule their own territory and to act on that territory and also to determine their relationship with other states was recognized. So no other external entity was allowed to interfere in the internal matters of the states. All states were formally equal and they had the same right and obligations. They agreed. We are equal, all states are equal, and they have equal right and equal obligations. There is no instance, there is no gap in which one is beyond the other. Rather, everyone, every state is equal. In order to avoid misunderstanding, as well as to reverse the situation of the 30 Years' War, newly emerged and recognized states of Europe started to dispatch diplomats to each other's court. States began to dispatch ambassadors to their equivalents, counterparts. The states recognized each other's equality and sovereignty, and no other state was allowed to interfere in the matter of other states. This sovereign equality and also respect for the sovereignty of the state was the main turning point in the European politics during the medieval period. This diplomatic network that was established by these states after a Westphalian treaty helped them to achieve or provided for them, number one, they got a means to gather information. It was an instrument of gathering information on their friends and their enemies, even for other progresses in economy or in other aspects. They started to gather information using diplomatic network. Even they used diplomatic network to spy on each other, to spy, to gather information, to access informations that were covered, that were not allowed by the state. So the way of keeping in touch with it was this diplomatic network was the way to keep in touch with each other. It was the way to foster, the way to establish, the way to promote each other's relationship. And also, it was the way to carry out negotiations, discussions, and concluding deals, agreements. They used diplomatic network to conclude deals, treaties, maybe economic, social, or political, and also negotiations on matters like security, economy, trade, and so on. Embassies were also given extra territorial rights and also legal immunity. Diplomatic dispatches were regarded as inviolable. The right of diplomats were inviolable, and also they have immunity. Ambassadors also had the right to worship the God of their choice. Under the Roman authority, under the Roman leadership and the Roman Catholic guidance, ambassadors were not allowed to worship the God of their choice. Rather, they were forced to accept what the Roman Catholic Church was dictating them to worship. But After the recognition of modern state, the new state, then diplomats were given the choice, the right to choose what God they wanted to worship, what religion they want to follow. Secularism was about to come. So this had its own impact on the modern international politics. So when these changes and these activities were taking place, what happened in Europe was not limited to them. It had a significant impact on America, North and South, and other countries were influenced by the political revolutions and religious revolutions taking place in Europe. But when compared to North and South America, the influence of political movements and reformations in Europe had less impact in Asia and Africa. In Asia, the relationship between European influence and Asian acceptance was not that much strong. And the African relation with Europe was not only limited to few trading parties. Although Eurocentric political and diplomatic activities were known to have strong influence, the impact of political mobilization and the impact of stability and new or modern politics in Europe on Africa was very low. The European model of statehood and way of organizing international relations eventually come to organize all of the world politics. Gradually, this movement and this development in Europe came to organize the global politics. And that is why we are experiencing this huge complex of systems undertaken under the Eurocentric philosophy. In the 19th century, the relations between Europe and the rest of the world irrevocably transformed. So it was really transformed. Economic changes taking place in Europe and at the end of the 19th century, new ways of manufacturing goods forced the Europeans to look for new markets overseas. When the 30-Year War was concluded in 1648, the normal relationship between states restored. They came to have a normal relationship, and negotiations, deals, and economic transactions were taking place among the states of Europe. They changed their focus from political turmoil to economic advancement. 2 centuries later, in 19th century, industrial revolution took place. They started to change the economic setup of the entire Europe, expanded in terms of economy, in terms of production. That is why we say economic change took place in Europe, and also at the end of 19th century, manufacturing goods, industrial revolutions started to influence Europeans to look for market. In the 19th century, they started to look for market, labor, and raw materials for their industries, because industries were invented, productions started, there is a need for raw materials, there is a need for labor, there is also a need for market for end products. Then they want to look for market, labor, and raw materials overseas. Toward the end of 19th century, other European countries joined in this scramble for colonies, not at least in Africa. So they knew they need market, they knew they need labor, they knew they need raw materials. So how can they get this all necessary input for their production? Then they have to colonize other countries where resources are affluent, where raw materials are affluent, where labor is cheap and market is extensive. This started to go to other countries like Asia, Latin America, North America, and even to Africa. So colonization of Africa and other parts of the world come at this point. In 1884 and 1885, European states came together at Berlin and designed a strategy how to colonize Africa and partition it without going to war. Then they came to Africa and colonized it. So colonial position became the symbol of great power. So when they colonize and have a large number of colonies under their authority, it was a symbol for them to be a great power. And status and the new European nation state often proved themselves to be the aggressive colonizers. They destroyed indigenous life of many African countries. They destroyed the indigenous life of Latin Americans. Even Northern America was under the power of British until 1776. Other countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America were colonized, and the European colonizers were aggressive because they were looking for market and resources to boost their economy at home. France added West Africa and Indochina to its growing empire, French Empire, and the Germans and Italians also joined the race on their respective countries were unified. They had a control on their colonies. Even the influence of French and England until today is in Africa. West Africa was totally under the control of French, and other countries were also under the control of United Kingdom. Until today, the present political landmap of Africans is influenced by European style of politics and colonial legacies. By the time of the First World War in 1914, most parts of the world were in the hands of Europeans. Africans were in the hands of Europeans. Asians, majority of them were in the hands of Europeans. And Latin Americans were in the hands of Europeans. So colonized countries, through the process of liberating themselves from the colonizers that the European models were copied. There are three phases in the history of colonized people: pre-colonial politics, during colonization, and post-colonialization. During colonization, majority of the fabric of the society, civilization of indigenous people was destroyed simply by European colonial powers. There was war and occupation in different parts of the world, including Africa, where the strong hands of European colonial power was manifested. Especially following the Second World War, there was decolonization in Africa. Majority of African states were liberated by the war of decolonization, and the European countries were influenced by the Second World War, because the Second World War highly affected the economic base of Europeans, and at this moment, Africans regrouped themselves and liberated from the hands of these colonial powers. However, they were not free of European style statehood and life. They had nothing left in their hand. So they had to copy the European style of administration, the European style of life, and the European style of border system. Totally, they copied the European state model. Europeans only would grant sovereignty to states that were similar to their own. The matter of recognition was basic so as to involve in the international system, which was basically occupied and controlled by the European states. In order to get acceptance, the states were forced to line their politics and administration system along the European style. Hence, the only way to become independent was to become independent on the European terms. They were taking European terms. They were lining their politics, their administration, their armies, whatever the state had to do on the basis of the European style. Once they finally made themselves independent, everything was the carbon copy of European statehood style. Their respective territories and borders, capitals, armies, foreign ministries, flags, national anthems, all were Eurocentric. Even today, they are Eurocentric. This indicates how much Europeans were having influence on Africa and other colonized people. This had it is a strong influence to the modern political style. In short, the evolution of international politics and international relations highly influenced by European politics and history. Hence, international relation and international politics is Eurocentric. That is why states in Africa, states in Asia and Latin America are forced and constantly under pressure from the Western countries to accept their policies and guidelines and administrative styles. So this had a great impact to nations residing in uh, domestic politics, residing in Africa, residing in Asia, residing in Latin America. They established instruments to carry out this invisible instrument of controlling the entire world. They established international institutions that echoes, that approves the implementation of European style politics and European style international relationship. They attacked the economy and the foundation of many other states. So these states were forced to accept terms that were against the interests of their people, that were against the interests of their government. This indicates the European style international politics and international relations is the main driving force behind the establishment of the global order. This marks the end of today's lesson, which is about nature and evolution of international relations. In this lesson, we have seen the evolution and nature of international relations based on the European philosophies and the European terms. So, I would like to remind you again to subscribe, like, share, and comment on videos uploaded to Sanyii Academy and become a member to this channel. I want to confirm that it doesn't cost you a penny. It simply requires giving a thumb and clicking. You need to help Sanyii Academy by subscribing, liking, and sharing the videos uploaded to this channel.